We didn't just challenge Iran at sea, we rewrote the balance of power beneath it. The message was unmistakable. The ocean would no longer belong to one force alone. In a relentless campaign defined by speed, precision, and overwhelming dominance, over 120 Iranian naval vessels were damaged or erased from the battlefield, with assessments still unfolding. Their surface fleet, once a symbol of regional strength, was reduced to silence. Submarines that once lurked beneath the waves, 11 in total, vanished from the equation entirely. Strategic ports were left crippled, unable to sustain operations, while mine storage facilities and ammunition depots were systematically hunted and eliminated. This wasn't a single strike, it was sustained pressure, designed to dismantle an entire naval infrastructure piece by piece, hour by hour. And it didn't stop there. Floating assets, mine layers, logistical vessels, none were spared. The mission was clear: remove Iran's naval capability completely, leaving no room for recovery, no time to regroup. At the center of this operation stood unmatched force projection. Two carrier strike groups, already positioned with precision, became the spearhead of the assault. One operated from the Arabian Sea, the other from the Red Sea. Perfect angles for a coordinated, crushing blow. From these positions, every inch of operational water was within reach. The decks of these carriers transformed into engines of war, where preparation met execution at a relentless pace. Fighter jets were brought up, aligned, armed, and ready. The moment orders were given, catapults roared to life. One jet launched, then another and another, each climbing aggressively into the sky, banking toward pre-assigned targets with calculated intent. There was no hesitation, no wasted movement. This was choreography at the highest level of military precision. Every pilot knew their target, every second mattered, and every strike was part of a larger design, to overwhelm before any response could form. In the air, it became a hunt. Advanced targeting systems locked onto enemy vessels with deadly accuracy. One pilot identified a warship cutting through the horizon. Within moments, the target was acquired, weapons selected, and fired. Impact. No confirmation loop, no second pass, because the mission demanded speed over spectacle. As one vessel was struck, the pilot was already moving on, coordinates shifting, focus narrowing on the next target. This wasn't about a single victory. It was about clearing an entire list before the enemy could react. Iranian forces had no time to scatter, no chance to shield their assets. Every second lost meant another ship gone. Every hesitation meant another strike inbound. It was a relentless cascade of precision attacks designed to collapse an entire naval force before it could even comprehend the scale of what it was facing. On the surface, the assault intensified. Escort destroyers received the command, engage. Within seconds, vertical launch systems came alive. Hatches opened in unison, and from within, Tomahawk cruise missiles erupted into the sky. Flames and smoke marked their departure, but silence followed as they leveled out and accelerated toward their targets. Each missile carried a destination already locked: naval vessels, port infrastructure, ammunition depots. Nothing was left to chance. The launches came in waves, one after another, until the sky itself seemed to pulse with outgoing firepower. There was no randomness here. Every missile was part of a calculated barrage, designed to strike simultaneously, overwhelm defenses, and leave no room for interception. The coordination between air and sea assets created a seamless chain of destruction. Jets striking from above, missiles cutting through from a distance, all converging on a single objective: total neutralization. And yet, while the battle raged outward, an equally critical operation unfolded within the carriers themselves. Below deck, the tempo never slowed. Aircraft that had just returned from combat were immediately brought down into the hangar bays. The moment their engines powered down, maintenance crews moved in. There was no downtime, no pause. Every second counted. Landing gear systems were inspected and serviced. Missile rails and bomb release mechanisms were checked, cleaned, and reset. Hydraulic systems were examined for even the slightest irregularity. Pilots reported issues, warning lights, control delays, minor glitches, and technicians addressed them instantly. Panels opened, diagnostics ran, fixes implemented on the spot. The goal was simple: get that aircraft back into the fight as fast as humanly possible. Because this wasn't a single wave, it was a continuous cycle. Above them, the flight deck remained in constant motion. Arresting gear crews prepared for incoming jets, inspecting the steel cables that would bring high-speed fighters to a halt within seconds. Each landing required absolute precision. Pilots approached from the stern, tail hooks deployed, guided by optical systems that ensured a perfect glide path. The moment the hook caught the wire, the aircraft slammed to a controlled stop, and within moments it was cleared, moved, and prepared for the next phase. Meanwhile, air traffic control teams logged every detail: arrival times, pilot IDs, aircraft numbers, weapons used, fuel levels. Everything was recorded with exacting accuracy. This data wasn't just documentation, it was the foundation for the next strike cycle, the next wave, the next phase of domination. And through it all, the operation never paused, not for a second, not for a breath. Because this wasn't just an attack, it was a system, a machine, and it had only one purpose: to keep going until nothing remained. While the strikes continued to tear through targets across the sea and coastline, the true strength of the operation revealed itself in something even more powerful than firepower: sustainment. Because dominance isn't just about striking hard, it's about never stopping. And out there, in the middle of open water, the carrier strike groups had built a system that could keep the war machine running endlessly. On the aft section of the flight deck, a different kind of mission was unfolding, just as critical as the strikes themselves. Sikorsky MH-60R Seahawk helicopters were being prepped, not for combat, but for survival of the entire operation. Nearby, a logistics vessel had taken position, loaded with everything needed to keep the fleet alive: fuel, ammunition, food, medical supplies, spare parts. The lifeline of the entire strike force floated just miles away, and the Seahawks became the bridge between endurance and exhaustion. One by one, the helicopters lifted off, rotors cutting through the heavy air as they moved toward the supply ship. Beneath them, cargo nets hung loaded with crates, boxes of precision-guided munitions, pallets of ammunition, essential repair components, and basic human necessities like water and food. The process was fast, efficient, and continuous. A Seahawk would arrive, hover with surgical precision, hook onto a load, and immediately lift back into the sky, carrying the weight of sustained warfare beneath it. Within minutes, it would return to the carrier or an escort destroyer, offload the cargo, and head back again. There was no downtime, no waiting, no wasted motion. It was a constant loop: outbound, inbound, reload, repeat. While missiles were flying and jets were striking targets, this invisible operation ensured that nothing slowed down. Because in modern warfare, the side that can last longer wins everything. Back on the carrier decks, the rhythm of war intensified. Heat shimmered across the surface as jet engines roared to life again and again. On the bow, catapults slammed fighters into the sky with explosive force. On the stern, returning aircraft slammed into arresting wires, coming to a dead stop in seconds before being cleared for turnaround. The entire deck functioned like a living organism, every crew member moving with purpose, every second accounted for. Weapons crews worked under pressure, loading fresh ordnance onto aircraft as fast as possible, missiles locked into place, bombs secured, systems checked and rechecked. There was no margin for error, because every jet that sat idle was a delay in the mission, and delays were not an option. Below deck, the hangar bays were a blur of controlled chaos. Elevators constantly moved aircraft between levels, bringing damaged or refueling jets down while pushing mission-ready fighters back up to the flight deck. Maintenance teams operated at peak intensity. They weren't just fixing problems, they were preventing them before they could happen. Every bolt tightened, every system recalibrated, every component tested under pressure. Time wasn't measured in minutes. It was measured in how quickly a jet could be turned around and sent back into combat. Pilots barely had time to step out before their aircraft was already being prepped for the next sortie. Briefings were short, updates were rapid, then it was back into the cockpit, back into the sky, back into the fight, and in the air, the formation of power continued. FA-18 Super Hornets moved in coordinated groups, slicing through the sky with precision. As they approached Iranian territory, the formations broke apart, each pilot splitting off toward their designated target. It was a calculated disassembly, designed to maximize impact across multiple points simultaneously. One jet moved toward a naval vessel attempting to reposition, another locked onto a coastal ammunition depot, another tracked fast-moving defensive drones launched in desperation. Every pilot operated independently, but within a unified strategy. Strike, confirm, move on. There was no lingering, no second-guessing, because the objective wasn't just destruction, it was speed. Hit everything, everywhere, all at once, before any defense could stabilize. Iranian forces, caught in the middle of this relentless assault, struggled to respond. Ships attempting to leave port found themselves tracked and targeted within minutes. Defensive systems activated, but against waves of incoming missiles and coordinated airstrikes, they were overwhelmed. The skies weren't just contested, they were controlled. Drones launched in defense were intercepted mid-air. Communication lines became strained under the pressure of constant impact. Every attempt to regroup was met with another strike. Every movement detected, tracked, and answered. It became a battle not of equal forces, but of one side dictating every moment, every move, every outcome, and still, the cycle never broke. Day turned into night, and night back into day, but on board the carriers, nothing changed. There was no end of shift, no pause. The operation ran continuously, powered by discipline, coordination, and an unbreakable tempo. Pilots flew sortie after sortie. Crews worked until exhaustion blurred into instinct. Helicopters kept the supply chain alive. Destroyers maintained their strike readiness. Every piece of the machine remained in motion. Because this wasn't just about winning a battle, it was about erasing the ability to fight back at all. And with every passing hour, that objective came closer to reality. By now, the operation had crossed a line from dominance into inevitability. What began as a calculated strike had transformed into a full-scale dismantling of an entire naval force. There were no longer engagements or skirmishes. There was only a system at work, methodically erasing every remaining trace of resistance. Iranian vessels that had survived the first waves were now scattered, isolated, and exposed. Some attempted to hide within damaged ports, others moved blindly into open waters hoping to escape detection. But it didn't matter. The net had already closed. Surveillance systems tracked every movement in real time. Satellites, reconnaissance aircraft, and naval sensors fed a constant stream of data into the strike network. The moment a target appeared, it was already marked. And within minutes, it was gone. Out at sea, the destruction was no longer chaotic. It was precise, almost routine. A warship would appear on radar, coordinates confirmed, and within moments, multiple layers of attack would converge. From the air, Super Hornets dropped in fast, locking targets with deadly accuracy. From miles away, Tomahawk missiles cut across the horizon, flying low, fast, and unstoppable. The timing was flawless, impact after impact, leaving no window for defense, no opportunity to react. Ships that once carried firepower now became nothing more than burning silhouettes against the water. البعد حاول القتال, but the outcome never changed, because this wasn't a fight anymore. It was the final phase of elimination. Back on the carriers, there was a shift, not in pace, but in realization. Crews understood what they were part of. This wasn't just another mission rotation. This was history unfolding in real time. Every launch, every landing, every repair, every resupply, it all fed into something bigger. The numbers told the story: over 100 vessels neutralized, submarine capabilities erased, ports rendered inoperable, supply chains cut, Difaat Bahriya intahet. And yet no one slowed down, because until the last target was gone, the mission wasn't finished. The physical toll was real: faces marked by exhaustion, hands moving on instinct after hours without rest, pilots stepping out of cockpits only to be sent right back in. But discipline overrode fatigue. Training took over where energy ran out. Every FIRD on deck, below deck, in the air, and at sea moved like part of a single organism, focused, relentless, unstoppable. Orders came in, and they were executed without hesitation. There was no confusion, no chaos, only clarity of purpose. Finish the mission. As the final waves of strikes rolled out, resistance faded almost completely. Radar screens that once lit up with movement now showed empty space. Communications from opposing forces became fragmented, then silent. The Al-Bahr itself felt different, quieter, heavier, as if the weight of what had just happened settled into it. The operation had achieved exactly what it set out to do: not just weaken a navy, but remove it from the equation entirely. There would be no quick recovery, no sudden comeback. What had been built over years was dismantled in days, and still, the carriers remained in position. Because Al-Quwa isn't just about what you destroy, it's about what you control after. Fighter jets continued patrol patterns across the Al-Mintaka, ensuring no hidden threat could re-emerge. Destroyers held formation, missile systems ready, watching every direction. Helicopters still moved between ships, maintaining the flow of supplies, keeping every unit ready for whatever came next. The machine didn't shut down. It stayed alive, alert, prepared. Because in operations like this, victory isn't a moment, it's a maintained state. And in the end, there was no dramatic final shot, no single explosion that marked the conclusion, just the gradual, undeniable realization that there was nothing left to fight. The ocean had changed, control had changed, and the message was clear: overwhelming force, executed with precision and sustained without pause, doesn't just win battles, it ends them.